closely follow along the email that was just sent out this morning on sort of some questions that we've been receiving related to some deadlines and how to send the program MOUs and how to transfer using requisitions. So we thought we'd start with that and really try and let you guys jump in with any questions now that we are past the September 30th deadline. So the first thing that we might do is look at the applications report. And so our final number for applications was 1,666, either started or submitted for all of our councils. So that's an incredible number. So that's great. And then this is just a report of all of the different statuses of those requests and applications. So of those, there were really only a handful that were left in process, which really means that it's incomplete at this point. So we thought it would be worth mentioning sometimes the provider really does fill in all the fields that are required for an application and just literally forget to hit the submit button. So it's probably worth going through your in-process applications if you have any and just reviewing it and maybe even following up with the site and just seeing if it's totally complete and if they should be part of your applicant pool for selecting your final participants. But that's your choice. You could also be very rule-based and just say, well, it was incomplete, so they don't qualify to participate. So we can send out these reports as PDFs, but remember, you can always run them yourself, going to the reports module and searching %sign application, and then all the different application reports will pop up here. So are there any questions, just to kind of open up the floor to anyone who has any questions or comments on the application process or the September 30th deadline? Any thoughts or comments or questions on that? Okay, great. Well, that's good. I mean, I think we had a lot of questions come into the support desk, and we tried to answer those as quickly as we could. So hopefully you felt like you had what you needed up until that deadline. And then, of course, Race to the Top is still open. And you can continue working on outreach for those Race to the Top applications and things like that. So from a reporting standpoint, we'll be sending over the final application report for the ITQA, CCAP, and school readiness. But then, of course, we'll continue to keep that updated as the statuses change over time. Because the idea is that over the next couple of weeks, you'll be reviewing all the applications and reviewing them against the rubric, scoring the applications, and then potentially even meeting with a selection committee if that's how your council does this kind of thing, and then making those final selections so that you can send out the program MOUs for new applicants and for renewals or for the Race to the Top applications. No rubric scoring is needed, so you could have already sent out the program MOUs. If you haven't, then you can go ahead and send them out through Sugar. So is there anyone who wants to see another demo of sending a program MOU on this call? Just chat in if you'd like to see that. Yes, okay. All right, great. So Mara, since you chatted in, would you like to give me a site that you'd like to send a program MOU to? A site name? Okay, great. Sargent Early Learning Center. So we're just going to type this in here and pull up the account, or you can look through the applications. And then I'm going to scroll down. While I'm on the account, I'm noticing that the primary contact is filled in and the email address is filled in. So that's great. That means we should have no problem sending the MOU. So I'm going to scroll down to the application subpanel. And which one would you like to send, Mara? Would you like to send Race to the Top ITQA, or school readiness? School readiness. Okay, so we're going to click on the school readiness. And you might have noticed we rearranged the tabs a little bit to kind of pull out some of the historical stuff. So all the CDHS related questions are on this page here. And then you can ignore DPP and SEED, that is Denver specific. And as we add additional applications for your private funding, then we can add additional tabs up here. And then everything in CCAP 2I 2014 can be archived and ignored, basically. And then there's also this section called internal use only, rubric scores. So this is where you can indicate if a rubric applies and input the score here if you'd like to do that. And you can also put in notes about the application if you've got any notes that you'd like to put in there. Okay, so if we go back to the application tab, we can see that the status is submitted. And I'm just going to look around a little bit and see if things look, you know, I know I've got my requisitions down here. These look good. They're in the preliminary status because I haven't sent the program MOU yet. Okay. And I've got one quality improvement and one coaching, so that's looking pretty good.
So I unmuted myself. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. So, hi. I thought that would be faster than trying to type. So, now, if we need to change those numbers, is that, according to our budget, is that where we would change them down there?
Yeah, so you can change them. We actually will go through the requisitions and transfers module guide on this call, so I think we can use this as an example. You do not have to change them before you send the program MOU because the program MOU does not explicitly say how much they're getting. So maybe what we could do is let's send the MOU first, and then we'll open up the requisition guide. And this is actually a wonderful example, so we can kind of walk through the whole process.
Are we going to physically send the MOU yet? Because we haven't changed our MOU to say our name or anything yet. So
it will all mail merge in, so it's all set up so that it's customized. Yep, for each council. Yep. Okay. So as long as you're okay with that universal MOU template, then which at this point we really can't be changing. You know, if we have taken a couple of requests from councils, but it does take a little bit of time. And it's a little bit late to be.
No, I mean, if that's what, I mean, we've read it and everything, and I just thought we had to go input our council name and stuff. I didn't know it was pre-populated. So
basically what this is it's basically a fancy mail merge where it takes that Word document and it uses EchoSign, which is an Adobe product. And it will actually fill in all the fields that we want it to fill in, send it right to the provider first, and it's going to send to the primary contact on the provider record.
So this is email. A stupid question, but does it just email it to their email? Or does it go through Colorado Shine? Does it go through like something else?
It sends it right to their email.
Okay.
And then what's cool is if that primary contact doesn't have signatory authority, they can actually delegate the signature right from that email.
Okay.
Okay, so actually we can even show you what that looks like because we're copied on all of them. Are you the program manager on the funding screen?
No, Sherry is, and I'm not sure if she's logged on to the meeting yet.
Okay, well she will be CC'd on the program MOU when it gets done.
So she'll be able to see each MOU as they're sent out.
That's correct. So a lot of us have created rules where in your inbox, all the EchoSign stuff will go to one folder so you don't get inundated with email.
So I'll tell her to do that. Okay.
Perfect. So if you come back up to the application, you can see the status here is submitted. So to edit it, you can just click on that. And instead of having to scroll through and find the one you're looking for, you can actually just start typing, and it will pull up. So there's Send MOU here. There's also a Send MOU amendment. That's for later if you have, like for school readiness last year, we all had to send out school readiness program MOU amendments because of the whole Colorado Shines thing.
Right.
So this allows us to do that using the same record. So we're not having to create a new thing. Okay, so then we're just going to hit Send MOU. And then in order for it to actually trigger, then we need to say Save.
Okay.
Okay, so now this is saying MOU error, see status details to correct. There's no program officer found specific. So let's look over here. It looks like someone had modified that the program officer needs to sign the MOU. Do you know anything about that?
No,
that's something you need to have? I don't
I know a little bit about the program, so maybe it may be like a board officer or something needs to sign it, and they don't have that on there yet. I don't know. I'm guessing.
Officer?
I just picked a random thing, and it's not my program. So I should have picked a program that I know more about.
No, that's okay.
So
I think the program officer is actually like the CDHS program officer. So we don't need to have them sign it because we've verified that with CDHS, but CDHS is not needing to sign any of the program MOUs. Sometimes they do, so it just sort of depends on the program and the program.
Okay. I saw that when I looked at another site of mine, and it said first, second, third, and I wondered who had set that up. And it was on my list to talk to Sherry about, so I didn't know. Okay.
So you can always, in any sugar record, you can always view the change log. So you can see, it looks like Sarah Robb set it up.
Okay.
For some reason that way. So I may need to go in and check all the funding streams and make sure that that's not selected. So I will make sure that that happens.
Okay.
Okay, so but if you get that error, any councils out there, you know you can go to the funding stream and modify that to not include the program officer. All right, so now that we've updated the funding stream over here, and let's make sure everything else looks good. So we want the provider to sign first. We want the council to sign second, and that's going to be the primary contact listed on the council record. And we know the program manager is Sherry, so I think we are all set on there. So I'm going to refresh this page. I don't think I have to do, but whenever, like Sugar is a website, so if something ever feels not quite right or you updated something, just try refreshing it and see if that fixes the issue. Or another good trick is if something's just not updating, you can clear your browser cache. Because sometimes Sugar is trying to be smart and remember something for you so that it loads faster. So if you clear the cache, then you'll see those things.
Okay.
All right, we're going to hit Send MOU again and hit Save. Here's hoping. It's taking a little while. It could be because we're connected to GoToMeeting. All right, so it was successful. So MOU is out for signing. And then you'll see as the signatures progress, little messages will populate in the status details. Like it will say, waiting on so-and-so for signature, or it will just give you little messages. So this is a really nice way to kind of keep track of what's going on. There's also a report under application status, I think is what it's called, that you can actually see the status details. So if I want to look at anything that is MOU out for signing, and maybe I want to look at, let's see, this is ECC SLV, and this is the school readiness funding stream for ECC SLV. So I'm going to hit apply. Let's see. All right, there we go. So, so then you can see your different MOUs and you can see your status details on this report.
Okay.
So this is a nice report to use. And you can definitely feel free to go explore the reports module and just see what is there, because there's some really good stuff in here. I've got a whole bunch because I have an administrative user, but you'll only see the ones that have been specifically assigned to all councils or that you create yourself. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Marianne, and then I wanted to clarify, because this came up as I was working with some people and getting through the MOU process myself, since I'm not intricately involved with that piece, is when it's done, it doesn't say MOU signed, it says accepted. So when you're looking, because I had a few people who thought it was still in process and resent it, where actually everyone had already signed it and you were done. So I just wanted to be clear that you'll see accepted in that status, not MOU signed.
Yeah, that's great. And so actually there's a really good guide. So if you go to Sugar Training Guides and you click on Working with QI Applications, Funding Streams, and MOUs, you will see in here that there's a really nice table of all the statuses and exactly what the statuses do. So you can see kind of the steps you need to take, like the application is started, so it's in progress, it's been submitted. You can review it, so you can put it in all kinds of different statuses that might be helpful to you, and they're not triggering any actions. You can send the MOU, and that's going to move it to MOU out for signature. So basically it says the starting status and the ending status. And then it kind of has the final approval after the MOU is signed, then it goes into accepted. And that's how all the requisitions become approved. And so if you do a manual upload of an MOU, then you need to actually select Approve Requisitions, Linked Funding Stream, and Accept, and it will move itself to accepted, and it will approve all of your requisitions for you. Okay, so so this is a really good guide. This was included in the email that was just sent out, just so that you've got easy access to it. And there's also this QI business process narrative, which people specifically requested, and so we created it back in mid-September, where we've got this, this business process flow, and everybody was like, well, we need a little bit more narrative on really what does this mean, and so that's why we put together these steps. So if you haven't already reviewed this, this is a really nice sort of point of reference in order to do that. So perfect. So I think we've got some questions coming in. I've only sent RTT initially. Does this matter? That's totally fine and perfect. So Race to the Top doesn't need a rubric. So if you've it's great that you've already been sending the Race to the Top program MOUs, because hopefully that means you're starting your coaching readiness assessments, which are required to be done as soon as possible once the program MOU is signed. So that's perfect. And then for school readiness, ITQA, and CCAP, for all of those renewals who have already participated in a prior year, you didn't have to score them against the rubric. So you could have been sending the MOUs, but if you decided to wait until now, then that's okay too. You don't need to include them for the rubric purposes, and unless you want to. And then all the new applicants need to, of course, be scored against the rubric. Let's see if we've got any other questions here. I think that's it. All right. So let's go back over to this application. So let's see. Mara, do you know what you want to transfer, what the funds are that you actually want to have in here, the funds and coaching hours, so we can show the requisitions and transfers? Okay, great. You can unmute yourself if that's helpful.
Okay, well, I just didn't know if there's going to be a whole bunch of people talking, so I just didn't want to monopolize the time.
Well, and thank you for being our volunteer. I think a lot of times people don't like volunteering, so we appreciate it.
No problem.
Great. So why don't we can pull up the requisition guide here, which was also in the email, but you can just find it right here, QI requisitions and transfers. And this is a brand new guide. So please let us know if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. This is a little bit more complex than what we've been releasing previously, like logging outreach, which is pretty straightforward. So please continue your questions, and we will make sure that we try clarifying or simplifying as much as possible. Basically, and Mara, maybe we can jump in with you after we give kind of an overview of the types of requisitions, but you can just leave yourself unmuted if that works, and we'll probably just kind of use your council as a demonstration, if that works for you.
Okay.
Awesome. So this kind of just gives you an overview of what a requisition is. And a requisition is really just a way of kind of earmarking some dollars for a specific purpose so that you can then kind of issue purchase orders against that amount and not have to, you know, wonder what your remaining balance is. You would just always know what your remaining balance is. So that's what that means, and that's sort of described right here. And then the transfers module really is just like a bank. Like, it just allows you to transfer from one requisition to another and makes it very simple to do that. So we'll kind of go through that. And the transfers module is brand new. You know, Denver never used it. It was not used in the CCAP QI pilot, but was really kind of a result of the pilot. And so, you know, and Denver has wanted to have a functionality like this so that it was a little easier to track the flow of dollars. So we're really excited to release it. But since it is so new, please let us know if it's doing something that you don't expect it to, because we want to make sure we correct anything that might seem a little funny. So, all right. So there are two different main types of requisitions. There's the requisitions that are assigned to providers, and that's what's being generated by an application. So this right here are sort of the provider requisitions. So in subpanels, you'll see that labeled provider requisitions. Then the other type is a pooled council requisition. And on a lot of these calls, we've talked about sort of discretionary QI funds that, you know, are equal to 20% of your quality improvement dollars that are directly assigned to child care providers. So this is designed to really allow for that concept to kind of come all the way into fruition. So the pooled council requisition basically gives you a big bucket of dollars that you can then divvy out to your providers however you see fit. So you can also, if a provider is forfeiting dollars, meaning they decide, hey, look, I am not going to use this $53 that I have left, so they're forfeiting it, then you can actually transfer that money back up into the pooled council requisition. So it's basically the pooled council requisition, again, is a big bucket of dollars equal to no more than 20% of total QI in a particular program. And then the provider requisitions are a whole bunch of little buckets that tell you what your available balance is for that particular provider at any given time. And so that really empowers both the provider and the QI navigator, your program staff, coaches, to know exactly what resources are available so that you can make good decisions based on that. Okay, so any questions on what a pooled council requisition is versus a provider site requisition?
So I have a question for you real quick. So the money that's in there, because I'm new to this, I usually don't handle that money part. Like, we know what's in our budget, but you guys don't necessarily, like, Sugar doesn't know yet. So we have to kind of tell it, right? Like, even though they were allotted so much money, doesn't necessarily mean that's what's in our budget. So we have to kind of tell it what's in our budget, and then it will pull from those different buckets, right? Whatever. We fill the buckets with what we tell it needs to be in that bucket.
That's exactly right. So,
right?
So
okay.
you get to decide how much the buckets are filled with. So the way that we did it this year is we just created pooled requisitions for everyone at the amount of $1 for quality improvement requisitions and 1 coaching hour for coaching requisitions. And that was the information just sent out in the email. So don't feel like you're missing something. It's brand new information. And we did it this way so that you would be able to update that amount to match your budget. And I think it's important to clarify too that because applications just closed, we only just now know exactly how much money we want to be kind of dedicating to support child care providers. who are participating in the programs. And, you know, a lot of us haven't made the final selections yet.
Right.
So you know, there is nothing saying that you need to go update your discretionary pooled QI requisition immediately, because you might not know the exact number right now. You probably penciled in a number. You know, based on guidance from OEC, you could have penciled in a number for the 20% discretionary QI, or maybe it was lumped together as part of your total QI budget. But, you know, so you're welcome to put that in there and adjust it later if you want. But, you know, it's really, you know, it's just a tool. It's just another tool that you have to kind of keep track of the dollars. And, you know, if you have a program manager or an accounting person who, like, feels very comfortable with the dollars, then you can have them make sure that the dollars are correct. And then your program staff, your QI navigators, they don't need to worry about whether or not the money is actually there. They know, because there's an approved requisition in sugar, that they've got those dollars to spend on that particular purpose for that particular grant. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for you.
Right. Okay.
And
I think I understand.
In addition, a question from Kelly and Karina, addressing if there are minimums. So yes, there are QI minimums per funding stream. And then Karina asked a little more detailed of explaining the minimum. Some of these do not equal our budgets. So at this point, and then I'll have Sharon jump in because I don't even think I've ever looked at a school readiness budget. There's minimums for each funding stream. So you would need to allocate that minimum amount per site, but they wouldn't match your budget. There's varying numbers, exactly what Sharon just pulled up, depending on the level of the site and the number of classrooms. So it's very formula-driven within sugar based on those differences. So if you look at the MOU, you'll see a minimum, I believe one in Freedom, I don't remember which one, it's $1,000. So for each site you accept, you would allocate a minimum of $1,000, but let's say that site needs a new playground, and there's another site who really just needs a bit less maintenance for their QI. You can move then that money to the site that needs a playground. So you need to keep in mind your budget, because that's the final amount of money you have to spend, but you have that flexibility between the minimums and your total budget to allocate to your providers.
Well said. Yeah, so does that make sense to those people asking that question? You know, and I think we've kind of said this a couple times, but this was originally sort of a working document that took on its own life and became sort of a place of confusion for many people. So really what you need to know is that sugar knows the formulas. So you don't need to worry about the formulas happening correctly. You might need to worry about if a site didn't input their number of classrooms correctly, then the formula won't generate correctly. Or if the site, you know, for some reason, you know, there's a new license number and there, you know, complexities like that, then you need to sort of elevate that. But for the, you know, for the regular application, you know that the dollars have calculated based on this exhibit, which is the final exhibit, and this is in this Trello card here. There were changes from the original grant contract, which I believe was actually the ITQA contract, had all of the QI allocation formulas in it as an exhibit. There were changes after that contract was released. These were shared at several ECLA meetings and posted online. So these are replacing what's in your contract guidance. And, you know, we can have OEC confirm that as well since they're on the call. But, you know, basically you can use these as a reference point, but in the end, as long as they have the right number of classrooms and they have the right level reflected, then, you know, there's probably not going to be a problem with their requisition values as they are initially generated. What you may decide is that, well, I have a program, actually just like this one, right? I've got a program, Sargent Early Learning Center, who's technically eligible for 3 different funding streams, right?
Yeah.
So see, we've got different funding streams here. And so, you know, I know that I'm required to accept them and to Race to the Top on a first come, first served basis just because they're a level 2 site until I have maxed out my budget. That's just how Race to the Top works, first come, first serve. But for the other two, I have a lot of discretion as a council, and I can decide, well, you know, because they're in school readiness and ITQA, I'm actually going to reduce their ITQA QI funding because I know that they've got the school readiness funding, and I've got this other site in ITQA who I really want to support at maybe a higher level, or that allows me to accept 2 more sites where I would have only accepted 1 more site, or some, you know, so there's a lot of room for you to decide as a program staff, and Sugar is just the tool that lets you reflect what your decisions were and then communicate those decisions to your providers through the EC Connect portal, which is something that we have not gone into a lot of detail about yet. CCAP QI pilot participants have seen it and used it, but we are going to demo that a little bit today so that it starts making, you know, you can start seeing what the provider will be able to see once you invite them to create a login into the EC Connect portal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's kind of what we had been thinking, you know, exactly along those lines. We're in the process of evaluating the rubrics and stuff for the school readiness and ITQA and doing that, and so we were along those lines, you know,
Good.
Exactly that. So,
Great.
yeah.
And that's a great point. First address it. Karina and Tiffany are kind of essentially asking the same question. It's extremely likely that your budget will not fund all of the sites that have applied that you feel could be accepted. That's where the rubric comes into place, where you essentially, in the simplest of terms, sit down, look at your budget, and see how many of those sites you can fund based on that rubric score. And that's where the wait list option comes into play, where if there's additional funding released and we're able, and amendments are able to be done, you know who's on the wait list and who and how much to give those people. It's also important to know, and I believe someone did say it actually, your budget is not in Sugar. If you over allocate, Sugar will not know that that's outside of your budget parameters. So I just want that to be clear. Well, you just would need to sit down in whatever capacity your council does the budget when you do these allocations and awards to make sure you do not over allocate those funds. And then just real quick, Rebecca's question, if they don't need the 1,000 or the minimum, my first thought is, you know, is it a site that you want to accept, or I believe, and Sharon, correct me if you're wrong, the system allows you to do that, but you will need a narrative as to why you're, a pretty detailed narrative as to why you're giving less than the minimum.
Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, we are just helping facilitate from a technical assistance perspective, but OEC, Office of Early Childhood, and your program officer are the ones who, you know, would be able to answer specific questions on, you know, something that's more along the lines of program requirements. So if there's a site who's got a minimum allocation of $1,000 and you're saying they shouldn't get any of that $1,000, that does sort of beg the question, why are they participating in the program? Maybe just for coaching, and maybe that's a totally valid thing because they really just need coaching to get ready for the rating or something like that. But, you know, that kind of thing, like if I were an OEC program officer, that would probably make me pause and want to sort of understand why that's happening. So, so then, you know, they will be able to see those requisition transfer notes. That's not currently being synced at the moment, but it will be synced soon, and it will all be status driven. So you have control in the sense that it's only going to send over your approved requisitions, not your preliminary requisitions. But you know, they will be able to see that, and that's important because then they can have a better understanding of what's really happening on the ground.
Hi, Sharon. This is Michelle from OEC.
Hi.
I just wanted to just send out there into the universe that we are asking that you guys really look at your budget and create those wait lists, and we're going to be reviewing budgets quarterly this year. This is something new we haven't done previously, so that if we see some areas that aren't using their allotted fundings that we budgeted for them, we can then transition funds to different councils who might have a higher wait list. So we are going to be looking at that as we go throughout the year. So really look at, as you're going through all of your applications now, and really try to hit those ones that really need your help right now, and wait list those who maybe aren't needing the help quite as much, and then maybe we can go back and see how we can help them later on through the year.
Great, thanks for that clarification, and that's you heard it here first. There's possibilities for budget amendments when you're really seeing a lot of demand in your area, so that's good news. So thanks, Michelle. So there are a couple of other little questions. What if our budget is not big enough to cover the minimums? What if we exceeded our budget? So I think again, you are in control. You are in the driver's seat. You can change the status of an application to waitlisted and really show, that, given the minimums, I can only support 10 sites in my area. And that's completely in your control. So what you might need to think about is if you're not supporting the minimums for the certain number of sites that you were hoping to support, you could reduce the number of sites that you're supporting, and then you can still give the minimums. So you can adjust from several different angles, and I think what the state was really hoping to accomplish with this is that throughout the state there's a certain level of equity in terms of I'm a provider, I'm participating in school readiness in any county, and I know I'm going to probably get about this much funding if I'm committed to this program. So it just kind of helps, kind of bring that all together as a state, and that was something that was important to the Office of Early Childhood. Okay, so that was a lot of great discussion. So I think now, actually, if we know the amounts we want to transfer here, you can transfer using a lot of different types of, a lot of locations. So right now I'm in the requisition module subpanel, and if I want to, I can right click on this and open this in a new tab, and that's going to pull up my actual requisition. And a couple of things about the requisition. The first thing you see is whether or not it's pooled. So in this case, because it's a provider requisition, it is not pooled. So you don't want to change that to yes when you're on a provider. So just leave that alone. And then the status is preliminary because the MOU is not signed yet. And it's tied to the site account because it is not pooled. If this was pooled, then I would actually see, and actually I'll show you, I would see the council account, and I can associate my council's account to this record. But in this case, I'm going to leave it at no and leave that site account in there. I can also see the type. So this is where there's quality improvement versus coaching. Trainings is something you can completely ignore right now. We will be releasing some information where if you want to track your training professional development budget in terms of actual training expenses, if you put on internal trainings to child care providers, and you're paying your trainers and you're paying for food, not with Race to the Top dollars, and doing all of that, then you can actually track that throughout Sugar, but we're not going to release that yet. So you can focus on quality improvement and coaching. It's also going to tie itself to the funding stream automatically based on the application. The assignment type is always going to be dollars for quality improvement, but if you have coaching, then you might have internal coaching, which is really just hours because it's your staff, and there is not a single place in Sugar where you can track staff expenses. So there's no personnel budgeting in Sugar. That's all outside of Sugar. So we're just tracking hours in Sugar. For external coaching, then that necessarily means you're paying those external coaches a fee, so you are tracking dollars and hours. So that's the differences there. So we're just going to leave that at dollars. You should never really have to change anything on here. The only thing that you might want to change is the expiration date. This is the only thing that the expiration date does is tell you whether or not the requisition is going to show on the EC Connect portal to child care providers. So it doesn't actually functionally do anything inside of Sugar. You can still use the QI funds as much as you want throughout the program year, but this is literally what controls whether or not it shows on the EC Connect portal. And then here we've got the initial assigned funds. And so you don't want to just come in here and edit this, and in fact I think we're working on making this not an editable field, because then you lose the ability to track from an audit trail the fact that you changed the amount. So I'm actually going to write down right now, because that is not supposed to be editable, so that you will not be able to edit that soon.
In the next week.
And then it's going to automatically calculate based on your purchase orders through the spending records, the funds utilized by this requisition and the funds remaining. And that's really important because, again, it gives the power to the child care site and to your program staff to know exactly how much money they have. There's no question. They don't have to ask anybody. They just know what the amount is. The description, you can put.
Well, I have a question though, real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, sorry guys. So, what if? Okay, so that amount though is the amount that they've been allocated through you guys, but doesn't match my budget. So how do we go in and change the amount? Is that through that transfer thing that we talked about earlier?
That is exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. It's
okay.
through the transfers.
I just answered my own question.
No, that's perfect. You know, I think that the reason why we did that, and this is from, you know, Denver, we've had this system for about 2.5 years, and we never had a good way of being able to kind of look back and understand where money moved from one site to another, or from, you know, one site up into sort of like a, you know, bulk purchase on behalf of lots of providers. So what we really wanted to have was a nice way of being able to show, okay, I'm moving money from provider A to provider B, or I'm moving money from provider A up into my council budget so that I can redistribute it later when I have more information about who I want to give more dollars to.
Okay.
So it just really, it makes it a little bit cleaner. And that's what I meant when I said you won't be able to edit that specific field, but you will, the amount will change based on the transfer module.
Right. Okay. Forgot. Sorry. Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you. Please keep asking questions. So then this archived field, if you select yes, then it will actually archive itself so that it won't be available in subpanel views. So each year, at the end of the program year, probably 2 months after the close of the year, we can do a mass update to archive all the old requisitions, just so that they're not cluttering up your view. And then you would still be able to access them through reports and lots of other things. So that's the purpose of that. Just kind of cleans up the system a little bit. And then the assigned to, so it looks like this site may not have a QI navigator. Is that? Let's go look and see. So in this case, there's no QI navigator assigned. So Mara, do you know who the QI navigator is for this account?
Yeah. Her name is Tina Escobar. Yeah.
Tina Escobar?
Yeah.
Oh, there are 2 of her.
I don't know why there's 2 of her, but that would be her.
So we're going to take a little detour real quick and just remove those duplicates. So if you find duplicate contacts, you should be looking at this. We went over this last week. But we want to make sure that we keep the one that has the Salesforce ID. So you might get duplicates because of the Salesforce integration. You'll probably only ever see 2 duplicates, and that's just because of the way Salesforce does that. Either one of them have an email address. So.
Neither one of them. Well, I know we were having lots of trouble with her email address. I mean, lots of trouble with her Salesforce and Sugar login, and we were working on it yesterday. That's her email. There she is.
Okay, good. So we're going to merge these. and pull her email address. This is what we're keeping, so we're going to pull that email address over. Oh, yep, looks like Joni was working on this.
Yes.
Okay, so everything looks good there. We're going to hit save. All right, great. And then we're going to just tie her back to the sugar user. Most of this setup should be done for you, but if you're ever experiencing some issues with the QI Navigator, it's probably because the contact record is not tied to the sugar user. And that's what drives a bunch of workflows. Okay, so we've got an email address, we've got her tied to sugar, so that's great. And then we've got
I should have picked a thing that I was tied to. I wasn't even thinking. Huh.
What's that?
I said I should have picked one of my sites that I'm the QI Navigator to.
Oh, that's okay. This works. This is good. We're finding all kinds of good things that we can fix. Okay, so now she's got a QI Navigator. This account has a QI Navigator. Because the QI Navigator wasn't on the account at the time of the application, there's no default assignment to the requisition. So we need to make sure that the requisition also is assigned to the QI Navigator. And that's so that basically you can, as a QI Navigator, you can create little dashboards that show you all of your available funds and all of your sites and what spending you've got going on and what approvals you need.
Yeah, I've been trying to learn how to do that, but I didn't know you without any sites, you know, like, yeah, just confused.
Yeah, the first step is you have to assign all your sites to the QI Navigator, and then you can do all the fund reports and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So then we're going to hit save. All right, so so this is the requisition. Like I said, you probably shouldn't have to do a lot of work on the requisition, but it's always good, especially because this is such a different kind of year. Just look and make sure it's assigned to the person you want it to be assigned to, and you know things look right to you. And then down below, you'll notice there are a couple of subpanels. Right now, they don't have any information in them. That's why they don't have any records. So any requisition can be tied to a to requisition transfer and a from requisition transfer. So, so that's what these are. And then there's also spending, which is going to be how you spend quality improvement dollars. And we have not even released that module, so that's why you have not seen it yet. We've got the module guide finalized. We're just going to be putting out little webinars that go with it. It's definitely the most complex part of sugar, so we want to make sure that the guidance is as clear as possible. Then you can also have coaching details. So all those coaching logs you guys are doing should be tied to the requisition, and if they're tied to the requisition, they'll show up right here, and they'll draw down from the hours available for coaching requisition types.
Is there a spot on that coaching log to tie it to the requisition? Or do we have to go back and do it here?
No. It's actually a required field, so if you're putting in a coaching log, you are putting in the requisition. So the requisition is right here.
Because I don't remember seeing that in my previous logs, but I just don't. Okay, so if you're putting in a specific requisition, I'll have to think about that. Okay.
So what you might be thinking of is the coaching meeting, which is when
yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
But that scheduling doesn't actually, that is not getting all the information about the coaching. So when you schedule a meeting, then it creates a coaching detail log for you, and then you need to go into the coaching detail log to fill in all the information about the coaching visit.
Okay.
That's in the coaching module guide. So,
okay.
If you go to the support.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, good. Does anyone else have questions about that? Okay, so there's a question. Quick question regarding coaching log. Is there a way to remove the 0.25 hours from the sugar non-billable? So it's actually not, so the 0.25 hours is prep follow-up time. Let's see. So if we come in here, where did that go? I just lost that coaching. If we go into a coaching detail record, the prep follow-up time is something that we know that many coaches forget to reflect, that there's time spent for a particular site, meeting that site's needs as a coach, that are not on site with the site, but are part of being a coach. And so those hours are billable, and there's a definition of that. I think it's on the Trello card for coaching. So if we come over here, I thought it was on here. I believe that there's somewhere on here that gives a definition of what prep follow-up time is. But I will find that and make sure it's on here. The idea is you can definitely delete it if you want to, but the idea is that even just the process of opening up the account record, reviewing the account and all the spending resources that are available and what coaching has already happened and their rating information, if there's a QualStar rating, that takes a lot of time from a coach. And I think it's very easy to underestimate the number of hours that a coach is really spending on behalf of a site. So Clayton Early Learning and Denver Early Childhood Council recently determined that it would be helpful to just have that as a default setting, and then the coach could adjust it to 0 or adjust it to more depending on what the prep follow-up actually looked like for that particular log. But I think by consensus we could probably do a different default or think about that differently as well. Any follow-up to that? Is there a way to separate the direct coaching hours from non-direct? So that is the way that we're separating direct coaching hours. Direct coaching hours are the literal, you're scheduled to be on site from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then the prep follow-up time is like the coaching time that is related to that appointment. And then, of course, there's real indirect time, which is like a coach attends a staff meeting or a coach goes to a conference. And that should be reflected on your organization's timesheets. So that's not in Sugar at this time. Another question regarding coaching. Should the coach be the person to change the hours from held to complete and reconciled, or should this be the QI navigator? Absolutely. The coach should be the one who is completing the coaching detail log, completing the reconciled status. The coach should be the one assigned to the coaching requisition so that they know their workload. Like we were just talking about, you can't have really great dashboards that tell you what's going on with all your sites unless you're assigned to the requisition that you're working with. So it's really important for those coaching requisitions, and we'll go through this in our example, that you're taking the time to assign it to the right coach, and that you're also marking it as internal coaching when it's your personnel coach who's doing the coaching versus external coaching when you have a contractor doing the coaching work. Because that is a big distinguishing piece from a budget perspective if you have to pay for the coach from a fee-for-service perspective as opposed to just part of your personnel budget in your grants. Okay. We tried to delete it and could not. I think you can always remove the 0.25 from the coaching log. I keep losing my coaching log. So if you go into coaching details, or let's create one. So if I create a new coaching, then I can always change this to 0. Total billable hours, it lets you write it in here, but then it will override you based on the start date and end date. Hopefully that's helpful. Also, I just did something that you should not do, which is create a coaching detail directly right here. You should always go through the meetings to create a coaching, or through the account and then meetings. All right. So now we're going to move back over. Let's see. All right, so here's another question. So as we are reviewing the MOUs and the QQI requisitions, it is not equaling the requisitions in sugar. How do we get these to match? That's a good question. So probably it's just one of the variables. You know, the most likely scenario is that the number of classrooms wasn't correct when the provider entered it, and then maybe they went in and changed their classrooms and we got that updated through the nightly sync. But the requisition is not going to update once it's already been generated. So if any information has been changed after the requisition is generated, then it won't know. So the best way to handle that is you can actually reject the application, which will remove the assets, put it back to in process, resubmit the application, and then it will regenerate the requisitions. Or you can just adjust the amount and put in the note that you know, they entered the classrooms after the requisitions were generated or something like that. Like there was a number of classrooms were adjusted, something like that. Okay. So then I guess still on the 0.25, yet the 0.25 is taken out of their coaching requisition. It's not taken out of the coaching requisition if you change the 0.25 to 0, because then it won't be included in the total billable hours. So all you need to do is just change the 0.25 to 0 if you don't want prep follow-up time to be reflected. Or if you need to reflect additional prep for follow-up time, you can change the amount to 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever it ends up being. Awesome, thanks. Okay, so then I think what we were actually doing was on the requisition itself. So we were showing sort of these different subpanels down here, the to requisition and from transfers and the spending and coaching details. So I'm just going to follow along in here. Actually, this is the wrong one. So so if we come over here to this new QI requisitions and transfers guide, you know, we've gone through what the different types of requisitions are. We went through all the requisition fields, but there's a lot more information on here, so please still review this, even though we're going through it now. And it kind of has some important notes in here that will help you understand what the fields are actually doing when they're triggering an action outside of the requisition. So then, you know, what we were going to do is we were going to try to transfer some of the money from this requisition to the pooled requisition. In a sort of a traditional way that we've been thinking about this, you would first need to actually let the system know what your pooled requisition value is for a particular funding stream, and then you can transfer from the pooled requisition down to the provider. But I think in this case, we're actually hoping to transfer reduce the minimum, which we'll need a justification for, and transfer that up into the pooled requisition. Is that correct, Mara? Hopefully she's still
Yes, I think so. Like I said, I'm kind of guessing because Sherry's not on here, but just assuming that that total amount doesn't meet our total budget for everybody that's applied because we haven't gone through everybody's application yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, remember, you do not need to accept everyone who applies, and in fact, you should probably be waitlisting people.
Well, yeah, and but we're still going through the applications and still knowing, you know, who's going to get what, but
yeah,
knowing our overall budget. And I know she did preliminary go through it, and knowing that because is that the minimum? That should be the minimum that everybody was assigned?
Yes.
So, that just, as I said that, so the minimum that's on those amounts is the minimum according to that formula.
Yep, exactly.
So that's the minimum they should get. Got it. See, I didn't get that until I just said that.
Good. This is great. I'm so glad that you're helping with this.
Well, I'm sure everybody else got that but me.
No, we have gotten that exact same question, and sometimes people even type it in the email and then realize after they've typed it in the email that that was the right answer. So that it's good. It's just I think it's just a different way of thinking about things than we're used to.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, I mean, I think what I would recommend then, if you're not sure, you know that the requisitions is way over your budget, but you don't know exactly what you want your sites to have or how many sites are participating. So I would not recommend transferring anything at this time.
Right, because really that's the minimum they should be getting anyway.
Yeah, and also you just kind of want to wait to transfer. It's a lot of work to go in and transfer then transfer again and transfer again. So I think you really want to be sure you know kind of what you want in the end before you go in and start making transfers. So maybe what we'll do instead is we can show your pooled requisitions. So, so you were saying actually that your, well, and actually we've got a report, so let's run that. So there's in this new module guide, there's a report for pooled requisitions by council team.
Okay.
So we're going to pull this up, and let's put in, it's ECCSLP.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're looking at is pooled. So yes, is pooled. We're going to hit apply. So these are the runtime filters. If you can master these, you will love Sugar. This makes your whole life better if you figure out how to use these well. So now I can see at a glance all of my pooled requisitions, and I can see the different types, and I can see I've only got 1 hour and $1 in each one. So you were saying School Readiness isn't your program. Is there a program you would like to do this with?
Like Sargent's not my program. Monte Vista Head Start.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want?
I'm School Readiness, but we just do different programs.
Oh, I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So maybe what we could do is we can kind of show how you would update this assigned fund.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So if you can click on any one of these, and when you click on it from a report, it will automatically open in a new tab.
Okay.
So then we've got our requisition. We know it's yes is pooled, and so we've assigned it to our council account, and it's got our funding stream, and it's the type quality improvement. We're not going to change any of that. Now we probably want to assign an expiration date, and maybe we want to say this one's a little bit later, so we want to say 6/15/2016. So you can decide what the expiration date needs to be for your own internal processes. I would recommend not making it 6:30 because that's going to not give you enough time to process the orders. But whatever your council does is fine. And then the assigned funds on this one, we can actually just edit this because we're not transferring from anything to get to the pooled requisition. This is just a number from your budget. So it should be a number that you have on your approved budget, or that you're going to put into your budget modification that will hopefully be approved by OEC. So you would just get to make up this number based on your budget. This doesn't have any formulas driving it. It's purely the number that you're putting in here. The OEC guidance has been it should not exceed 20% of total QI assigned to child care providers. So that's the guidance that's been given. And then for coaching, it shouldn't exceed 10% of the total number of coaching hours. Again, that's the guidance that has been given at this time.
Right.
So then, do you have a sense of what your school readiness discretionary QI might be?
No
And
clue.
this doesn't have to be set in stone. We can change it again later.
No, because Sherry's not on the call, and she's the one that would have the number.
Okay, perfect. Well, what we could do is we can actually look at a report of your requisitions by funding stream.
I can make up a number, though. How about let's do, is this just for coaching or materials?
This is just for materials.
Let's do 24,750.
Okay.
I know that's pretty specific because that's what the number we were working with just the other day.
Oh, okay, perfect. So you can just update it here, and it will just there, and then you can see the funds remaining automatically updates to 24,750. If it had any spending records against it, then it would just say assigned funds minus funds utilized equals funds remaining.
Okay,
now,
so go ahead. Keep going.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out this applications field is on here and is blank because you're not a child care provider site. So
right.
it just remain blank. It's fine. Okay, you had a question.
So to get there, I do go to the pooled.
The pooled report.
The pooled report. Okay.
Yeah, and that's in the guide. So we're going
right.
kind of fast, you know, because this is brand new for everyone, but it's all in the guide. So we just
okay.
wanted to demonstrate. Now, one thing, I just ran a quick report of your school readiness requisitions. So the total value of all of your school readiness QI is only $26,501. So as we know that the maximum can only be 20% of your QI, and the total maximum that you would want to put in there is 5,300. So
yeah, so I don't know where I got that number. Okay. Oh, I know, because that's what everybody was awarded. Yeah, okay.
So actually, your total budget is really close to what your actual QI is, which is pretty cool. So, you know, you might just need to adjust a little bit, but it's actually not that far off from your QI. Because you don't have to have discretionary QI. You can just have up to 20% if that's what you would like to do.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so then.
See, I'm not the numbers person. You shouldn't have asked. I shouldn't have said anything.
What's neat about this is that even though you're not the numbers person, you will always know the number that you have to spend because you've got requisitions in there, and you don't have to guess. You'll just know.
Okay.
Based on what it is. So why don't we change this to 5,000?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's probably going to be close to where you end up.
Okay.
On your requisition. Cool. So did everybody see how we did that? So you can find a report called Assigned Requisitions by Type and Status and Funding. And then you can just type in your funding stream, and then this will give you all the requisitions in a particular funding stream. And then you can calculate your 20% or 10% based off of that. So if I want to look at coaching hours, I can hit apply, and then I know all my coaching hours. Cool. So that's basically how you can update those pooled requisitions. And like I said, you can start updating it based on what you think, and then you can update it again. And it will save in the view change log. So I can see right here, Sharon, so you can blame me later, right, if the amount is wrong. I changed it from $1 to $5,000. And I changed the expiration date to 6/15. So it keeps a little log for you. The view change log is really, really helpful, but you can't report on it. So that's why we created the transfers module, so that we could report on the transfers to and from requisitions.
Okay.
I actually have a question that mirrors the question that Karina just put in.
Okay.
To re-verify, the minimum QQI number is the number that was the 2,500 we saw on the screen, or the number in the MOU?
The number there is no specific number in the MOU. There is a sentence that says that it will be $250 per classroom and $1,000 or something like that. Right. But that the council has full discretion to be able to adjust that amount based on other quality improvement funding streams they participate in, or XYZ, everything like that.
But the amount assigned in sugar is not the minimum.
So I think we're confusing the words minimum. So if we look back at this, there's this thing called min NEQQI. That's the minimum of any site in the whole eligible scheme. So in this case, the minimum is 600, and that's for a one classroom level 2 site is 600. But the minimum for a level 3 site with 2 classrooms is 900, because it's 600 plus 300. So you can't look at this minimum. This is literally the minimum, like the lowest a site can get if they have one classroom and, you know, they're high quality or something like that. The highest is 1,500. So that means if they've got 20 classrooms, it doesn't even matter because it caps at 4 classrooms. So so the highest that someone could get in Race to the Top is 1,500. So that's the minimum and maximum for the whole program. The minimum for a particular site is specific to the number of classrooms they have and specific to the base and the other variables. Does that answer that question?
I think we may want to unmute Karina.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Karina. So my question, and you did answer, but I'm still confused because the minimum. Okay, so what I'm kind of reading on our MOU is what we set to a family child care provider says the minimum is 1,000 plus 250 for each classroom. So I'm thinking that Sugar would state that that family child care would receive 1,250 as their minimum. However, Sugar stating that they receive 2,500 as their QQI.
Which program are we talking about?
Patty Gardner.
School readiness?
School readiness, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so school readiness, and what level are they?
She is a 1.
A 1. So then this is level 1 is 1,500 plus 1,000 is 2,500.
Okay, so that was my question. I thought it was adding them, but I wasn't sure, and Holly and I couldn't quite understand that.
Yep, that makes sense. So the 1,500 is added to the base rate of 1,000 for 2,500. And then as you get more classrooms for level 1, I'm just adding 1,500 plus 250 is 1,750 plus 1,000 is 2,750. So again, I think, you know, this originally was meant to be like a working document for our programmers. So, you know, I think it's written in a way that makes sense to programmers. It might not make sense to you, and that's, you know, I think that's why we went to the MOU narratives, because that makes a lot more sense. But we wanted it to be very broad because councils really want to be sure that they have the ability to adjust downwards or upwards based on what they want to do with their sites. So, you know, the MOU is written very broadly. This is very, very, very specific. And so where we come into the middle is that Sugar knows this. So you don't have to worry about this being calculated right. You don't need to spend a lot of time verifying the calculations are right. You really just need to make sure that the number of classrooms is right. And as long as the number of classrooms is right, it's going to calculate correctly. So you, I mean, I think as a general rule of thumb, if you have a site who maybe added their classrooms after the application, then you need to double check on that. But you can kind of trust that this is happening, and then you can really rely on the MOU language for what you're promising your providers, and sort of what the parameters are on that.
Okay. So my other question is, and I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but in the past, we've always done school readiness based on classrooms, not sites. So they said in our contract, this is kind of what my understanding is we want to keep it kind of like what we've been doing in the past, which is about 22 classrooms. Mm-hmm. However, our budget does not, we never gave out this much money for one. I mean, in the past, a family child care provider home like this would have received anywhere from $500 to $700 in QQI funding, not $2,500. So our budget with the state says our quality improvement amount is only about $10,000 to serve 22 classrooms. So I'm showing about a $7,500 deficit, and not sure where I'm going to come up with that funding to meet those minimums of what Sugar said.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think based on the parameters in the exhibit, you would probably need to serve a smaller number of sites, which is probably not what you want to do. So I would talk to your program officer specifically and see if there's something that can be done. Because, you know, I mean, I think especially where it's a lot different for a budget like Arapahoe or Denver or El Paso, where we've got so many sites and we can move things around a lot because our budgets are more flexible because we have so many sites. When you've got a smaller number of sites, it's probably a lot less flexible. So I would probably defer to speaking directly with OAC on cases like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we didn't get quite through the full requisition module guide. Let's see, I think I lost it. But the other thing that you can do is actually transfer from a requisition to another requisition. So maybe I can show that with a test here. So if I want to transfer, so Bill's Child Care Test is an account that's a test account, and it's tied to my Race to the Top Denver Early Childhood Council Race to the Top funding stream. So maybe I want to transfer from this assigned fund. So let's make this a better number. So let's just call this like 2,500 or 1,500. Okay, so if it's 1,500 and I want to transfer some dollars, oh, you know what, this is a bad example because we should never be transferring from Race to the Top. Race to the Top is a small amount of dollars. It's really prescribed. We need it to be what it is. So let me back up here a little bit. Sorry about that. Oh, these are all Race to the Top. Okay. Does anyone have an example of a site that they know they want to transfer dollars from? No. Okay, well then let's, why don't we can transfer funds to a site from a pooled requisition, which should probably be the more traditional way to transfer things. So let's look at, I'm going to pick a real site, but we'll just not save the transfer. So I'm going to look for Children's Learning Center, and let's see, I've got an, I want an ITQA, actually CCAP. So I've got a CCAP requisition, and I just happen to know we've already put in our CCAP requisition value. So we're going to say that we want to transfer from this one and add it here by pushing the little plus sign. By adding it from the requisition, it's going to populate some things for me. So the assigned to, whenever you new record, is always going to be assigned to you, the logged in user. So this is another reason why you don't want people doing data entry on behalf of other people like coaches, because then all of the data entry will be assigned to the person doing the data entry instead of the coach, and that is going to not work well for reporting or for tracking performance and things like that. So, so always make sure that the person who's doing the work is actually doing the data entry as you're actually doing it. So now in this case, I want to transfer from my pooled requisition. So it went ahead and populated my CLC requisition in both places. So if I went and I made an amount and I had saved, it's not going to do anything because it's going to transfer $500 to it and $500 from it. So I want to make sure that I update this. So I want to put in my pooled requisition. And how do I find this easily? You can click on this little magnifying glass, but that's going to take you into the land of requisitions. So the easiest way to do this is start typing your council's abbreviation, and it's going to show you all of your requisitions that are pooled. So I'm just going to find my CCAP one, and I can see I've got $19,000 in my remaining balance for my CCAP. And then I'm going to keep this, my CLC CCAP QI, and I'm going to see that this is tied to the Children's Learning Center. And my remaining balance for the Children's Learning Center is $4,800. So then I get to select the type. So this is going to be a transfer. Most things are going to be a transfer. This conversion is used if you want to use quality improvement dollars to pay for and basically be converted into coaching hours, then you can do that by using conversion. So if you want to take dollars and convert them to hours, you use the conversion. Otherwise, use the transfer. And then I'm going to say the assignment type, because it's QI, it's going to be dollars. And we might be able to have those auto-populate. Right now they're not. And then the scope is basically whether or not I want to take that full remaining balance or a specific amount. Now, at the beginning of the year, probably it's going to be a specific amount most of the time, but at the end of the year, you might see some sites who are leaving a little bit of money on the table, and maybe you want to transfer the remaining balances of all those little amounts to your pooled requisition so that you can buy something bigger on behalf of all your sites. So that's the way you can do that. So it's a really neat way to do that. So we're going to say specific amount, and it is not a forfeiture in this case because, you know, I as the program manager, I'm deciding, oh, $4,800 is too much because they're also in 3 other QI programs, so I'm going to reduce it by $500 so I can support another site. So then I'm going to put in, well, and so if it is a forfeiture, that means that the site is actually telling you that they don't want to use the money. So it's the site telling you, I don't need the last $9 of my requisition, or there is no way I can take 20 coaching hours, so I'm going to forfeit 10 of them. You know, so it's when the site formally notifies you that they don't want the funds or the hours so that you can then reassign them later. So we're going to say no, and then we can say 500. And then the transfer justification, this is where I would say, you know, this site is participating in 3 QI programs, so transferred, you know, funds out to be able to support additional sites or something like that, right? So just something that would make sense to an auditor or to your program officer, or to, you know, if you've got staff transition, it would make sense to the next person trying to do the job. So just, you know, plain language on why it is that you are transferring the money. And then you would hit save, and when you hit save, it will actually calculate and change the balances on the related requisitions. So it's pretty cool. It's just like a bank transfer. All right, are there any questions on that? And I know this is a lot of information, but it's all documented in that guide. We thought it would be important to really cover the topic on this call so that, you know, you have a little bit more experience with it before you dive into the guide. There's a lot of language that is a little bit more geared towards accounting language. So, you know, if you want to kind of pair up with whoever is responsible for budgets in your office and kind of go through the guide, I think that would be really helpful. Because it's, you know, as an accounting person myself, I think it's really important to have very strong partnerships with program staff so that everybody feels well informed on what's going on. Okay, if, you know, we can stay on the line for another few minutes waiting for questions, but one thing that is really important is that next Wednesday is when the state is going to start doing their CSTAT reporting again. It's already been a whole month since the last CSTAT reporting. So, you know, I know a lot of people kind of balked at the idea that all the data would be entered in Sugar by September 15th. And so we, you know, we kind of said, well, as long as it's in by September 30th, then that should be okay. So I am hoping that all communication records are now being tracked at the time that they're happening, or at least by the end of the day or by the time I run the report on Fridays. And also that all coaching is being tracked in Sugar, and that all old coaching records are totally up to date. People are marking them as complete and reconciled, or canceled billable, or canceled non-billable. There shouldn't be anything, you know, before October 1st that is marked as held, for example, because held is not a final status. You want to make sure the coach is going in and marking it as complete and reconciled. If you don't mark it as complete and reconciled or one of the canceled statuses, it will not pull into my report that we're sending to the state. So you will not, it will not be reflected in the reporting for your council. So it's really important that your coaches are going in, reconciling everything out. We have added, there were some coaches who weren't completing all the fields, so we've added some required fields we didn't actually add fields, we just added the fact that they are now required. So you might go back in and open a coaching record and not be able to save because there are required fields. Well, all those fields need to be put in, otherwise the reporting will not work correctly. So it's really important to review all the coaching records that have been put in to date. Are people feeling pretty good about their coaching records? If you want to chat in yes or no, or oh, we still have a whole bunch of coaching to enter, or we haven't gone back and reconciled the coaching. If you've got any comments on that, that would be great so I can share that with the state. If I don't hear any comments, then that means everybody has all of their coaching entered and it's all reconciled. And we've got assessment scores in there and observations for the CCAP pilot. Is everybody feeling really good about that? Silence.
No, not really.
Have you been entering coaching?
Well, we've been entering like coaching logs and stuff. Yes.
That's good. Good.
But what do you mean by
meetings, or have you been entering the meetings and the actual detail?
Just meetings.
So all the detail needs to be entered so that you can record like the assessment scores, and you can tie it to that requisition for the provider. If you don't tie it to the requisition, it's not going to pull into a grant report because there's no way of it knowing which grant you're supporting through that coaching.
And so you need to do that through the requisition part. That's where we saw that, and that's where you put the.
You can do it right on the you should be doing it right on the coaching detail. So if you think about your coaching detail as the log, right? The requisition is right here.
Okay.
So you just need to put in the requisition, and it gives you the program abbreviation right here. So you just type in LDP, and you pick which one you want to use. So
okay.
You want to only use the coaching ones, not the quality improvement ones.
Right.
So I think what I might do is create some reports that will help identify if there's some missing information and try and send those out hopefully sometime today so that everybody can take a look at what might be missing. We can probably design some reports that will make it really obvious, like, oh, I've got 10 coaching detail records that don't have a requisition right now, so that means I need to go in and update them. Or I've completed my meetings, but I didn't ever go into my coaching detail, and that's really where all the meat of the information is, so I need to go in and update those. So I can get that report sent out. Great. Any questions or comments or wishes?
Calls, meetings.
All right, well, I have to jump off the call, but Mary Ann can support the finalization of the call. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing other questions, and everyone seems to be disconnecting. But thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. And always email support if you have any issues. Thank you.
Thank you.